I don't know of a girl or can think of any girl that will lock a bathroom door when she's in her boyfriend's place or visiting her boyfriend or lives with her boyfriend even. So this case is very confusing for me, because to me, I feel like she was protecting herself from him. But according to what Oscar says, that was what she usually does. So let's just get straight into the case. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day, not just a good day. So now let's dive straight into the case. Reeva Steenkamp. She was born on the 18th of August in 1983 in Cape Town to Barry and June Steenkamp. Everyone knew Reeva to be a sweet, loving, caring girl. She had two half-siblings from her parents' previous marriages, and she was basically thriving. She went to St. Domino's Primary School before her parents eventually ended up moving countries. Her parents didn't really have enough money, or they weren't really living that great, but she never showed it and she never acted like she was struggling. At the age of 15, she got into modeling because her teachers and friends in school would always say that she looks amazing and like she will be an awesome model. Even though she actually wanted to be a poet, she even has this poem called My Guardian. Like when I even read the poem, I was like amazed. I was like, wow, this is like so beautiful. She decided to take the modeling seriously, and it was getting her places while she was also studying law at the University of Port Elizabeth, and she was also doing quite well too. She graduated from the university in 2005, and in the same year she was chosen as the first South African face of Foravan, and this was a huge deal for her. Eventually she ended up moving to Johannesburg, in which she furthered her modeling career. Immediately she moved to Johannesburg, she got a boyfriend in which they dated for 4 years, and so she was always featured in the FHM magazine. She was usually always featured looking hot, looking sizzling. So she decided to use that fame that she already had from the FHM magazine to feature in a dating show called Tropica. Also made her blow up. She was even more known than before. While she was shooting for this dating show called Tropica Island of Treasure, it was actually shot in Jamaica. She broke up with her boyfriend called Warren. That's the boyfriend that she was dating for 4 years. I forgot to mention his name earlier. Just some months after breaking up with her boyfriend, she met Paralympian star Oscar Pistorius through a mutual friend called Justin, and not knowing that this was going to be the biggest mistake or biggest regret of her life. Oscar was born on the 22nd of November in 1986 to Sheila and Henny. His parents owned a mining business, so they were very popular around the area that they lived. Oscar was the second child out of 3 children, and just at the age of 11 months, he had his legs amputated because there was a problem with his fibula. So his parents made the decision to have his legs amputated at that very young age. 6 months after this, he tried to learn how to work with fiberglass legs, and he was doing well because it was his first prosthetic legs. He basically also entered into sports in school with the legs. You know, his parents always made him know that just because he doesn't have legs doesn't mean he can't do things. You know, his parents always made sure that him and his siblings never said, I can't. They would always be successful. They would always find a way to do things even when everybody says that they can't. At age 6, his parents got a divorce, and this basically made Oscar very sad. He eventually ended up getting over it, and he spent a lot of time with his mom, but he would occasionally visit his dad. In the process of this whole life thing going on for him, his mom died at the age of 16. She was misdiagnosed with hepatitis and was receiving wrong treatment, apparently. This broke Oscar. You know, he was now into depression, but eventually he ended up getting out of it, and he entered Pretoria High School, where he was now playing sports like rugby and other games. And in the process of playing all these games, he injured his knee. He got to the hospital, and the doctor said that he had to do rehabilitation and he should take on running, not knowing that this was going to change his entire life. After a year, he beat the world record in the Paralympics 100-meter dash, and his opponent and other people started saying that like he was given an unfair advantage because of his legs. So he also won some games in the able-bodied, so eventually he was cut off from running able-bodied races. He had been arrested in the past for speedboats, drunk driving, slamming a door in a woman's face at a party, and other petty things that didn't really aggravate to looking at him like he was a criminal. So all this has happened, and now it's building up to the point where Justin introduces Reeva and him together. Oscar told Justin that he had a reserved RSVP'd invite for the South African Sports Award, and he didn't have anybody to take with him. And Justin now decided to introduce him to Reeva, or he had actually already introduced him to Reeva. So Justin told him to probably take Reeva, but he wasn't sure if Reeva would like things like that. But when he asked Reeva, Reeva loved it, and they eventually ended up going together, in which they took their first pictures together. The event went well. Everybody was, talking about it because everybody knew Oscar's previous girlfriend, and now he was at the sports award with another woman, and everybody was saying, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful, she's a model, she's this, she's that, like it was a thing, So after that, they became really close. After the sports award, they spent 6 days together before she had to travel for one of her modeling jobs. By the time she came back, she spent Christmas with him and his friends, and by January 13th of the next year, they started dating. On the 13th of February, there's CCTV showing Reeva driving into his apartment, and by 10 p.m. they had already finished eating and doing everything. She even made a tweet posting and writing, what do you do for your love on Valentine's Day? So meaning she was getting prepared for Valentine's Day. The gift she even got him was unopened in the sitting room, just on the table, basically. In the early hours of the morning on the 14th of February, Oscar's neighbor heard 3 bangs, and his wife woke up and asked him what that sound was. He got up and said it was probably sounding like a gun sound. She got really scared and told her to just wait in the sitting room, and he was going to go check whatever that was out. He goes outside and he was following the noise, or where he thought he heard it from, and by the time he got to Oscar's house, he saw a woman covered in blood and towels all around her, with plastics too all around her, and it was just a sad thing to see. Like, even he himself was scared. Right beside her, he sees Oscar on his knees, crying and wailing, and he's just telling Oscar that everything is going to be fine, that he's a doctor, and they're going to see what is going to happen. They pace around for a bit, and they eventually end up having to call the police. Immediately the neighbor calls the police. The first thing that goes to Oscar's head is to call his friend Justin, and immediately Justin picked up the call. The first thing that Oscar said was, Reeva has been shot. I mistakenly shot Reeva, and now I don't think she's breathing. The neighbor took the phone from Oscar and confirmed what Oscar had just said. Justin lived 40 minutes away from Oscar, and immediately he heard this, he got into the car, hoping that Oscar was probably drunk or something and saying all this, and immediately he rushes straight to Oscar's apartment, and immediately he gets there, he just sees police scene. It was just covered up with police, and he couldn't even see anything because he was already on the brink of tears. He goes forward and he just sees Reeva with towels around her and plastics around her, with her body just covered in blood. Oscar just kept screaming, I've killed my baba, I've killed my baby. It was like a really sad thing to see, and that was just, I cannot even imagine how, like some people feel like he did it purposely, they feel like he didn't do it purposely. It's just, we really cannot even tell it. We really don't know at this point. But the fact that the door was locked just makes me think like something's fishy. Oscar was in the garage or gym space, because his garage has like a gym in there, and that was where he was just basically shirtless and had his shorts on and basically nothing. His legs were covered in blood, and that was where the police took him to investigate him a little bit. The officer asked him if he washed his hands, and he said yes, because his hands were covered in blood. The police officer then asked Oscar again if Oscar remembered him, and Oscar said yes. Apparently Oscar had basically been arrested for the assault of a woman, and that police officer was the one that actually took the case and remembered Oscar. The third question that he asked was what happened, and Oscar just proceeded to say that he thought it was a burglar that was inside the bathroom because he was hearing noises when he was on the bed. Furthermore, when Oscar and his team were asked on how this actually happened, there is actually an animation that will help you guys to see how he said it happened. And not too long after, I'm also going to show you what the court and private investigators think actually happened. So now I'm going to play what Oscar said happened.
In the court affidavit signed on February 19, 2013, Pistorius said he was watching television in bed while Reeva Steenkamp practiced yoga after a quiet dinner together. The couple fell asleep sometime after 10 p.m. Pistorius awoke a few hours later. He brought a fan inside the bedroom and was closing the balcony doors when he heard noises from the bathroom. Pistorius feared an intruder had entered. He grabbed his 9mm parabellum from underneath his bed and headed to the bathroom. He shouted at the intruder and yelled at Steenkamp to call the police. Pistorius saw that the bathroom windows were open and heard movement inside the toilet room. He was too scared to switch the light on. He fired 4 shots at the toilet room door. He screamed for Steenkamp again, but there was no response. He then moved backwards out of the bathroom. He reached the bedroom and found Steenkamp was not in bed. Pistorius returned to the bathroom and called Steenkamp's name. He tried to enter the toilet room, but it had been locked. He returned to the bedroom, opened the balcony doors, and screamed for help. Pistorius put on his prosthetic limbs, ran back to the bathroom, and tried to kick the toilet door open. The lights were switched on at this point. He then grabbed a cricket bat from the bedroom and smashed the toilet door. A panel broke off, and Pistorius found a key on the floor. He used it to open the door. Steenkamp was slumped over on the toilet. Pistorius carried his girlfriend out of the bathroom and phoned property manager Johan Stander to call an ambulance.
Very weird that he didn't even bother to check if his wife was beside him, because it's just, I don't know, it's really just weird. So now I'm going to play what the court said happened, or they think, or the private investigators think happened.
What is the version of events that night, according to the prosecution?
Prosecutors believe there was a fight, that witnesses could hear the fight from outside these windows that were open, possibly for up to an hour. They believe Reeva then flees to the bathroom. He puts on his prosthetic legs. At some point, comes around to this side of the bed, grabs his gun from underneath the bed,
and then goes after Reeva.
And then chases her into the bathroom.
This is to scale, and this is quite some distance to go from the bedroom to the bathroom.
Prosecutors believe that bolsters their case of premeditation.
Pistorius fires 4 times. 3 shots hit Steenkamp in the hip and elbow and in the head.
So on the 14th of February in 2013, South Africa woke up to the most crazy case ever. Like, they didn't even believe. Some people thought that it was actually fake. It was fake news, but like, it was everywhere, spread everywhere, but people could not still believe, because they thought that they had the perfect relationship. You know, they were always smiling. Everybody thought that, you know, everything was all love, and it just broke the hearts of many, especially Oscar's fans. Oscar was taken to the police station on the same day, and the prosecutors were Andrea Johnson and Ferdinand. While in court, the prosecutor Johnson asked Oscar why he didn't check for his girlfriend on the bed before he went to just open fire at whoever it was around. And she also backed it up by saying that something similar has happened in her household, and her husband stood up and checked if she was around before he went down to proceed whatever it is that he was going to do. After a year of Reeva being killed, on the 3rd of March of 2014, the court case actually began. And there were lots of information that actually came out during this time. Text messages from the past. And you guys, those text messages were not even it, because they were always fighting. They were in a really toxic relationship, apparently. And I'm going to put some of the text messages here, where you see Reeva saying that she cannot be scared of him and scared of his fans at the same time, that sometimes he just spirals out of anger, but she still loves him, you know, just basically showing how toxic the relationship actually was. And this message was just on the 8th of February that she sent this message, so which meaning that they were still in kind of like an argument or fight a week before the Valentine's Day and the shooting happened. And this was where the explanation of how everything was going on, how the courts thought that it happened and how Oscar thought it happened. You know, Oscar's POV was played, the court's POV was played, and I would actually reason more to the private investigator's side. Sorry. There were a total of 4 shots fired, and one of the shots were missed. The first shot actually hit Reeva in the hip bone, which made her lose her balance, and then she fell down. The second shot hit her right arm. The third and the fourth were kind of confused because they did not know which one came first, because there was one that missed her and one that just went straight into her head, which instantly killed her. There are actually pictures of Reeva's injuries online. If you guys want to see that, you should go Google that, because I don't think I should put that on here because it's like quite graphic. Reeva's father actually wanted it to be out there so that the world can see what Oscar Pistorius did to his daughter. An ex-girlfriend of Oscar, the one he dated right before Reeva, called Samantha Taylor, said that they met when she was 16 and he was 23, and they met at a rugby game. Thereafterwards, they met on Facebook. I mean, they chatted on Facebook for a while, and after just a year, they decided to start dating. And actually, her parents were actually scared at first because they thought that she was chatting with the wrong person. But after the first date that they had, they saw that it was actually the real person, like it was Oscar, because at first her parents were scared that she was being catfished for some very weird reason. Maybe she had before. They dated for a period of 18 months, which is basically over a year, close to 2 years. Not bad. Lasted longer than any relationship I've ever been in. Anywho, she said everything was rainbows and flowers in the beginning, but Oscar started growing very, very obsessed with guns, and it will even be to the extent that she'll just be on her own in the sitting room of her house, and she'll just receive a picture of Oscar holding a gun and pointing it at different directions. And then she also realized that he had a short temper. He was always frustrated, always angry, and sometimes he would even take it out on her. She said the first time she actually witnessed one of these short temper angers was when they were actually driving somewhere and they got into an argument, and Oscar literally shot through the sunroof close to her face, and she was really scared. The second time that he showed her how crazy he was when he was intoxicated and he just set fire on the ground of his apartment and started dancing around the fire. Like, what do you think this is, a campsite? The third time was when she was at his apartment and he had his friends over, and apparently he was so drunk that he slipped and chipped his tooth. He was so drunk that he made himself believe that she was the one that hit him or tripped him or beat him up to the extent that he lost a part of his tooth. He started screaming at her, yelling at her, and she got so scared because he was always with his gun. And then she was so happy when he slept off after his friends went, and she just took the gun and hid it so that, you know, she doesn't get killed before the next morning. How scary is that? She also explained in court that she and Oscar were actually dating at the time of the sports award that he took Reeva to. And he called his friend Justin that he didn't have anyone to go with, which is very weird. You know, I said that in the beginning of this video. Apparently, they were just having off and ons. They never really broke up. Okay, so she was expecting that either he went alone or he invited her. So when she saw the whole facade and the whole story of him going with another girl, I think she just took it to her that, okay, he's moved on. Even though he didn't break up with me, we never had a breakup. I mean, I guess he has moved on now and I'm no longer his girlfriend. That was basically what she took it as. On Valentine's Day, when the news actually broke out, people actually thought that it was her that got killed, and they just started putting RIP messages under her posts on Instagram, Facebook, and every other social platform. Oscar apologized to Reeva's parents and everybody that knew her in the court, and at a point in time, Reeva's pictures mistakenly came up on the screen and Oscar basically vomited into a bucket. I mean, they brought out past videos of Oscar misbehaving, and one of them was when he was shooting a watermelon and the watermelon basically burst, and he said it is as soft as brains. And the prosecutor claimed this video and said, do you see what you did to that watermelon when you shot through it? That's exactly what you did to Reeva's head. Damn. Basically trying to make him understand what he did so that he can take responsibility. And after he said this, he told Oscar to take responsibility for what he did. So the vomiting, the videos, the texts were shown in court. And also there was also an argument on how many shots there was, because he also said that he used a bat to hit the door to open the locked doors, because I was actually confused as to how he opened the door, but he said he used a bat. So people were trying to separate how many gunshots there were and the number of times that the bat hit the door when he was trying to open it, because the bat sounds also sounded like the gun sounds. He also removed his prosthetic legs to walk towards the court place where he was going to talk, to spark emotion, obviously. I mean, his lawyers probably told him to do that, right? His lawyer basically was claiming that Oscar had a mental disorder and that he was going through a traumatic experience, and he had also been growing up with trauma. And because of this, they put him through a psych eval, and it was shown that Oscar was fine. And just because he lost his legs at 6 and his mother at 15 doesn't give him the right or the claim of having a mental disorder of trauma from doing that. So the mental observation had no mental disorders and that he knows right from wrong. On the 12th of September of 2014, Judge Masipa found the prosecution had not beyond unreasonable doubt proven that he intended to kill Reeva. So she acquitted him of murder, but she found him guilty of probable homicide or manslaughter because he had used excessive force and negligence by firing 4 shots at a toilet door, knowing someone was in the house. Oscar was sentenced to just 5 years in prison, then went to maximum security prison for a year in Pretoria. He was released in 2015 to serve the rest of his term as house arrest. But 2 months later, he was actually guilty of murder. He was found guilty of murder. The panel of judges made a unanimous decision to find him guilty of murder because his defense team didn't make them understand or have any reasonable proof as to why he fired 4 shots. You know, if you think he's an intruder, like, fire 1, at most 2, but 4 shots, I mean, it's kind of crazy. After this, he was sentenced to just 6 years in prison. The prosecutors actually took this case up again to a higher court, and he was actually sentenced to 15 years in prison, but they reduced it to 13 years and 6 months because he had already served some time in prison already. In November of 2021, Oscar was up for parole, and he was also moved to a prison in Eastern Cape for preparation for a victim offender dialogue with Reeva's parents. So he was supposed to have a one-on-one discussion with Reeva's parents and apologize because it was part of his parole application to finally be released. So after he did this, he was on house arrest, and now Oscar is basically on parole or free, whatever. So that's the end of this case, guys. I hope you guys loved and enjoyed, and I will be seeing you in my next video.